Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am joined with Brooke Colvin from Farmers Insurance, and Brooke is going to be sharing with us this morning all things insurance and answering any questions that myself or Amanda may have. And Brooke also prepared some questions that she commonly gets asked. I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit on how I met Brooke. I'm thinking it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, Brooke. Does that sound pretty close? Yeah. So an agent that I was mentoring and training at the time joined a networking group with Brooke and created a fantastic relationship with her. I met Brooke, fell in love with not only her, but her drive and determination to be a successful business owner. And I remember looking at Brooke at some point and I was like, I love you. And I wanted to be a part of her, who she is and where she's going and the direction she's taking her business. And my agent actually ended up relocating back to Pennsylvania and starting his own real estate business out there and is doing fantastic. And when he left, I kind of grabbed Brooke and we've been working together ever since, and it's been absolutely amazing. I personally carry all of my insurance with Brooke, my homeowners, my vehicles, and my pet insurance. So if you ever have questions on pet insurance and you know me, you know that I am all big on the pet insurance. So I am going to go ahead and turn over everything to Brooke and let her go ahead and do her presentation. And then we'll have some questions for you. Go ahead, Brooke.
Thank you for having me today. I've really enjoyed getting to know you as well, and I'm so glad you scooped me up and took me under your wing. So I am Brooke Colvin with the Colvin Insurance Agency. First and foremost, I'm a mom to three kids, 7, 4, and 3. They keep me on my toes, but they're also my drive. So that's kind of why I am where I am today. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together for 15 years, married for 9. And he also is the other half of my drive and why I'm here. He his work used to have him work 100 hours a week, and my goal when I took over the agency was to bring him home. I was tired of having him gone on the weekends. I was tired of having him not home at night. And then the kids came around and he was still gone, and I was like, I'm done with it. So those are my two reasons why. I am a Colorado native from the San Luis Valley. Not many people know where that is, but it's about 5 hours south of Denver. The other big part of my reason why is I'm a thyroid cancer survivor. So when my oldest was 4 months old, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And at that time, all I heard was cancer, and that I was going to die. So I decided that it was time to get my butt in gear. Good news is cancer's the only curable kind, and I'm still here today. So yeah, I've worked for farmers for almost 14 years now. I started at the bottom. I was the receptionist. I got my licenses. I started quoting people. I became the office manager. And then it got to a point where I had my oldest child. I was diagnosed with cancer, and the opportunity to own an agency fell into my lap. And I decided at that point that's what I needed to do to be able to take care of myself, my family, so on and so forth. So I've owned the agency for 6 years now. We started with about 800 policies. We're now at a little over 2,200, and we're the biggest agency in my district. So that is a huge deal. It wasn't just myself, though, it was my staff and they help keep me in track and growing. And so, that's really huge. Not everybody has that, and I do, and I'm so excited for it. We've also qualified for toppers, which probably not a lot of people know what that is, but it's the top 10% in the industry qualify for It's kind of like a work conference, but we also play a lot while we're there. They usually do something at Disneyland and a few other locations, so that's awesome. Um, we are also a prime agency, which prime means that we're able to mentor other agencies who come into the farmer's family. We can also take over other books if there's people who need to leave for certain reasons. And it also means that we're doing the things we're supposed to be doing for our clients. We're taking care of them. They're happy at the end of the day. We're selling what we need to be selling and making sure that families are insured properly. We were the first agency to be prime. Now I've had a few others join me, but being the first one was a huge deal to us, just because it means so much in the farmer's world. Um, but we serve all of Colorado. So anywhere in Colorado we can write business in. We also are licensed in Virginia, Texas, Arizona, Wyoming, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Hawaii, and Indiana. We offer auto, home, commercial, life, and pet insurance. Beth knows all about that. Um, but our main focus really is to educate everybody about the available coverages on each types of those policies, so that they can make an informed decision when it comes to their assets and their families, and they understand what they're covered for and what they might not be covered for. That's kind of, a lot of the times when we talk to people, they don't know what they're covered for. They know they have to have it. They know they have a deductible, but they have no idea what those limits are, what it covers, nothing. So my goal has always been to educate those things, and my clients should know those things, um, so that they can make that informed decision. And if there's something that does happen, they know what to do, what it's going to cover, and those type of things. So our main focus though really is home or commercial insurances. Home is kind of a hot topic here in Colorado. Um, it's changed a ton over the last several years. In 2018, we had really bad storms. 19, we had fires. 20, we had fires. 21, we had fires. 22 was kind of a quiet year. 23, we had hail. We've had some fires. We've had more hail, and it just keeps changing. It's ever changing, and it's going to continue to do so unless Mother Nature decides to back off, which I don't see that happening. Um, on the commercial side, businesses are always seeming to be underinsured. They have no idea what their coverage is. They just know they need it, but they don't know what they have. So commercial is another huge deal in Colorado, and just making sure that everything's properly covered. For one reason or another, Colorado is also a very sue happy state. So if something does happen, people are usually turning around and suing the business or the homeowner or the auto insurance insured person. So just making sure that those two are taken care of is a huge deal. Plus, if you have insurance on your home or your business, if you have one, then you know that your biggest assets are covered. Um, so that's kind of us in a nutshell. That's what we like to focus on.
Awesome. Brooke, you covered a lot of things, and primarily like we feature and we help people, or we the whole goal of this is really to help real estate agents and to help us to be more successful. Are there any tips or tools that you can give us as agents, um, for us to be able to help our clients? Let's say one of the things that we're really navigating right now is getting insurance on mountain properties. That seems to be a very hot topic. And I know that there's so many things that go into whether somebody can get insurance. But do you have any tips or just basic like key items that somebody can be looking for on whether a home they're showing in the mountains could even be insured?
Sure, absolutely. We actually write a lot of mountain property homes in my agency. And I think it's because we've kind of figured out what we need. So when it comes to mountain homes, insurance companies are looking for how far are they from the fire department? Is it volunteer or is it full time? Is there a water cistern? Is there a swimming pool? Is there a lake close by? The other big part that we do is we actually do call the fire department and we ask them how many pumpers, how many tankers they have, and do they have a planned route of how they would handle a wildfire in that area. And so if we have that information, or if we can get any of that information from realtors of like, here's kind of the pre-rundown, then we're able to get that information faster to our underwriters and be like, look, here's what we have. Here's the reasons why you should insure this property. It's a risk, but it's not as big of a risk because we know A, B, and C. So really anything that you guys can come back and say, hey, here's what we have, will help us go to our underwriters so that they can make an informed decision on insuring that property. Another big piece is, are there trees surrounding the home, hanging over the home, touching the home? If there are, there can't be. No insurance company is going to write a home that has trees that are touching or hanging over the roof. So that would probably need to be addressed before we could put insurance on it. Those are really the two big things, making sure there's a fire department close by. Usually the closer, the better. The trees.
Awesome. That's super helpful. I knew about like the trees and the locations, like the perimeter surrounding the home. I actually didn't know about the piece regarding the fire department, so that's super helpful. So one of the situations that I run into a lot when I go to list homes is somebody who will tell me, oh, well, we had hail, but I don't have any leaks, right? That's always what we hear. Would you suggest, or what would you advise? Does it affect somebody's insurance to have somebody come out, say a roofer, and take a look at the roof? Or would you suggest we wait until we go through inspection and then we have a roofer come out and take a look at it?
So having a roofer come out will not affect your insurance unless the claim is filed. One, you want to have a trusted roofer, which I have for anybody who doesn't have one. Two, you don't want to call your insurance company and have them file a claim just because you're like, hey, I had hail. There are insurance companies out there, especially if they're 1-800 numbers, that will do that. If you call in and ask, they will file a claim, and that is going to affect you. So I always recommend, if you think you have had a hailstorm, have a roofer come out. They do free inspections. They will be honest with you if you use someone who you know, or your realtor knows, or your insurance agent knows. But yes, having the roofer come out and take a look is always step one, and it's always something I recommend. Because the other thing is if you do have hail and you have nobody come out, you only have a year to file that claim. Once that year passes, you no longer have coverage. And I don't think a lot of people realize that they have that year time frame to file a claim if there is damage.
That's great to know, because I know I've run into a couple situations with some of my clients, and they were on the hook for the damage. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I don't know. We've had a lot of hail, so it just kind of seems like I think seriously in like 5 years I've replaced my roof twice. So yeah, it's been a lot of hail these past couple of years. Just asking Amanda or Diamond, do either of you guys have questions for Brooke before we keep going?
I came in last, so sorry about that. Ran a little late, so I don't know if there's anything important that I missed.
We've just been talking about insurance and who Brooke is, and what's brought Brooke to this point in her business and all of the success she's had. So, mostly just any kind of questions that you might have, or anything that are kind of just those questions that you don't really understand how the insurance works in regards to a home.
I know that I came across some other agent that was talking about like when someone is buying a home and they need home insurance to get their loan approved, and they'll cut corners and not really get good coverage because they're just so focused on making sure their debt to income ratio is proper. Have you ever ran into issues like that? Is that something that you've learned to avoid? Do you just not do that? Do you, after someone closes, maybe go back to confirm that they understand what they signed up for in their policy?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have run into that, and I'll be honest, we have helped some families, say, okay, here's the important coverages, here's what you've got to have. Their DTI is too high, but they really want to be with us. So we will, honestly, the one thing we do is we put a high deductible on their wind and hail. Just because Colorado has a high deductible anyways. So we put that on there, get them through closing. And then that's something where they're a new client to my agency. We're doing a 2-week follow-up phone call of like, hey, do you understand everything? Do you have questions? Are you still comfortable with this coverages? So on and so forth. And then we also do a 30-day follow-up of checking in again. And then we do a 6-month follow-up. So halfway through their policy, we're like, hey, this is the coverage you have. These are the deductibles you have. Are you still good with this? Do we need to look at something? Do we need to alter anything? So if we have run into that DTI issue, and they're like, we've just got to get through closing, we are constantly following up with them and hoping that they eventually understand that what we did to get them through closing, and that if they want to make those changes, they are making those changes. I haven't yet had anybody not change to a coverage they're more comfortable with after closing. And I think that's just mainly because we do a good job of following up with them and saying, hey, remember, we put that $15,000 deductible on wind and hail. Are you ready to change that back down? So far it's been okay to do that. It's hard to get into a home these days. So if somebody is super close on their DTI and they're like, look, this is what we want to do, then we will do that. I don't always recommend it, but obviously we have to have insurance to close on a home. So after that point, it's just finding an agency that you're comfortable with and trusting to know that they're going to follow up with you and say, hey, this is what we've got before something does happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, like, above all, like insurance agents, Brooke, your follow-up and explanation, no one understands their policy. And it's funny because it made me look at myself. I don't. I had to go look at like even my own car insurance, like what did I actually sign up for? Because I was actually the one that was focused on the price. So no, your follow-up is amazing and your explanation to your clients is huge. And it definitely makes a difference with working with them.
Thank you.
So, Brooke, I have a real life situation. I had a buyer that closed on a home just a couple months ago. And shortly after closing, he messaged me and said, oh my gosh, we found out that the inspector missed a huge leak. And it's been leaking for a while. We filed a claim, and our insurance company is not covering it. I am curious if you could maybe, and I know each situation is different, but I'm wondering if you might be able to maybe just kind of give us a brief rundown on generally what kind of items are covered for insurance and what's not. Because I think there's a lot of confusion. I know people talk about water that comes in from the outside of the home and versus water on the inside of the home, or continuous leaks that are long term versus something that just kind of suddenly happens. So I'm wondering if you might be able to kind of explain for us, because as agents, we get asked these questions all the time. And of course, we want to refer people back to their insurance agent, but it just helps us to be knowledgeable about the situation and how to best advise our clients.
Sure. Water is a very case by case basis. It depends on why it's there, how it got there, how long it's been there, why is it continuously happening. So with water specifically, the one that is going to usually always be covered is if it's a sudden burst of water. So if a pipe breaks and it's suddenly bursting everywhere and you catch it before it starts to mold or cause too much damage, that's when you're going to have coverage. The other ones where water is flowing on the ground and flows into the home, or if it's been a drip that has been happening over time, those are ones that are not going to be covered. The drip over time is considered wear and tear. It's something that you didn't find right away. It's probably caused some mold, which mold is also not covered on home policies. So that usually isn't going to be covered. So it's always a good idea to check, once a year. Just make sure that you don't have any water dripping from your faucet. Water running into a home is more of flood coverage, which flood is not covered on your typical homeowner's policy. Flood is a completely separate policy. It's something that you have to pay additional for. And that's what's going to cover the flow of water into your home from a rainstorm, or if the river is overflowed, that's where you're going to want to take that coverage. So yeah, water is a difficult one to assess. But if it's not a sudden burst, then it's more than likely not going to be covered on your home policy.
Awesome. Now, my other question is, in 2013, we had the huge flood here in Colorado, and it really affected a lot of different homes, right? Being a Colorado native, I can usually like tell areas that are affected by those floodplains and things. But can you share how you guys go about deciding which homes need flood insurance and which ones don't?
So we go through FEMA, which FEMA is really the one that says, yes, this home is in a floodplain. No, this home is not. But within our quoting system, there is a map that we actually pull up of the home, and we look at all the terrains, and what zone they're in. There's several different zones. Some zones are more expensive, other zones are not as expensive. We have been seeing a lot more homes requiring flood insurance. And I think that's just something that, the world is changing, everything else is changing. So I foresee that becoming a new thing here in Colorado as well, especially if we keep getting fires that burn down all the trees, and then we get rainstorms. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. But really, we just take the information we have, we put it into our system, and FEMA is the one that determines those flood zones. And then obviously, if a mortgage company says you need flood insurance, then that's when we have to put one in place for sure. Other than that, it's totally optional.
Now, if somebody had questions when they're, say, listing a home, to find out if there's flood insurance, could they reach out to you for the information on where to find out if a home requires flood insurance, or how does an agent go about finding that information?
Yes. So I actually have a couple realtors, a couple mortgage lenders that I work with very closely that say, hey, we have this person going under contract. Can you look at the home insurance? Can you look and see what flood insurance, if it's required, if it's not, what zone they're in? And I do that for them without even talking to the customer. One, it's going to help them get that customer to come to them, and two, they're going to be more knowledgeable, and the more people I educate, the more education there is out there. So yes, all I need is a name, date of birth, and an address, and that is something that I can pull up for you and look at it and let you know what it is, what it's going to cost, if it's required, if it's not required, that sort of thing.
Awesome. That's super helpful. So I know that I asked you to prepare just a couple of common questions that people might have. And these would be questions that our clients probably ask us, or maybe even agents have asked you. So I'm wondering if you could share with us what those questions are.
Yeah, I have two questions that I get all of the time. It's kind of like it's imprinted in my head, because we get it so often. The first question is, why is insurance in Colorado so high, when it comes to home insurance? There is a reason. I don't know if anybody looks at California or Texas, but those two states also get hail, and they get water, and they get fire. And now Colorado is getting all of those things. Really, our insurance is so high here because of the amount of people who are here. There was an influx of people who moved here a few years ago, and they still kind of are. We get the hail, we get the fires, and then our costs of labor and supply has gone up dramatically, just like your groceries or your medical insurance, or gas or whatever else you buy. Those things have all gone up. So the cost of repairing the homes has also gone up. And then the amount of claims that have been paid out. The Marshall Fire, which was a few years ago alone, paid out over $170 billion to rebuild the homes. So just knowing that information, insurance companies have to be profitable. Otherwise, they're not going to be here in Colorado. $170 billion of, one fire taking out 1,000 homes, that's a lot of money. And so our cost of insurance, unfortunately, for everybody has to go up. So that's the first question that I get all the time. The second question is why are home insurance deductibles increasing? And it kind of ties in with why home insurance in Colorado is so high in premium. But insurance companies have to be profitable. And if they can't be profitable, then they have to pull out of the state, which is currently what we're seeing. There's a couple different companies that are pulling out of the state. Some are non-renewing their clients. Some are making their premiums so high that people can't afford them. So a lot of companies, the most common that they're doing, and it's just like what Farmers has done, they're going to a minimum deductible of 1% of the home of the dwelling coverage for wind and hail or higher. I've seen 2 companies in the past 3 weeks go up to a 2% deductible, and that's their minimum, to make themselves profitable again. They need the insurance, the customers, the insureds, to take a little bit more risk. Instead of the insurance company taking all the risk. So most people see that 1% and they stress out and say, oh my goodness, how am I going to afford a 1% deductible? Most homes here are over 500,000 when we're insuring them. So you've got a 5,000 plus deductible for wind and hail. But what I always tell my clients is if you think about the 2018 storms, roofs were costing like $12,000 back then, and our deductibles were like $1,500 to $2,500. Nowadays, roofs are costing 35,000 plus. So of course, we're going to see those deductibles need to increase to make sure that the insurance companies stay profitable. Those are really the 2 most common questions I get. And that's just something that I'd like to teach everybody, is just be okay with that wind and hail deductible increasing, because it's going to, and there's no way around it. All insurance companies will eventually be there, I would say within the next year or so.
Sounds like not only our industry as real estate agents is changing, but also your industry is kind of having to morph with all the house changes and stuff. So, Diamond, do you have any other questions?
Let me think. So, yes, I work with Brooke on the roofing side, and I loved her because she was the first person that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brooke, was it because like the 2-year rule was going down to the 1-year rule for where you could make a claim with your hail? You
mean when I referred all those roofs to you guys?
Yes, because like that was just what she did. She was on top of making sure she called all of her clients to make sure that they knew that that was coming up. Like, you have this little window and let's take advantage of it.
Yeah. So it wasn't that, it was the 1% deductible.
Oh, okay. So that's what it was. So I guess like, I don't know if there's any other like good stories where something like that, like I know you've been in this industry for so long. Was there someone that you worked under that you learned a lot from? Did you just figure out this business and understand it because not many agents do that. So with just knowing how awesome you are at it, did you just naturally come a part of what insurance was? Did you learn from someone? Was that a tip, or were you just constantly aware of wanting to take care of your clients?
I think for me, it's just that education portion. I want to make sure that my clients are educated and they know what's going on. And there's an insurance agent on every corner in every town. And so I needed to find a way to stick out. And I found, going through the 15 years that I've been with Farmers, that not every agent sticks out. They just kind of go to work, do their thing. They're content with where they are. And it is what it is. But for me, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to be known as an insurance agent who took care of their people. I wanted to educate the people so that they could make more informed decisions. So I think it's just between those 2 things, I think it's just something that was like, it clicked for me. And I was able to be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. when this happens, right? So Farmers is saying, okay, we're going to a 1% deductible. And I said, okay, that's great. Now I'm going to pull everybody who um, needs to, who is going to that 1% deductible effective this year. And we're going to take that and we're going to run with it. And we're going to send out our trusted roofer and make sure there's no damage. And if there is, we're going to get them a new roof. And if there's not, then that's okay. We're going to have the conversation of, you don't have damage. Here's what's going to happen to your policy. And the next time you have hail, you're going to call me and I'm going to send out my roofer at that point. So yeah, I think it was just, I needed to be different than every other agent. And that's kind of what has made me different.
Absolutely agreed.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is a big takeaway from this is one of the reasons I moved my insurance to Brooke is the way that she communicates with our clients and the follow through. And I've done many Zoom calls and I've had many conversations with all of my clients that it's imperative for us to be successful as real estate agents that we have a support system around us. And Brooke is just one piece of that support system. When I onboard a buyer and they need to get homeowners insurance for us to be able to close, I refer them over to Brooke and I ask Brooke to do her thing. And I know without a doubt that Brooke takes care of them, communicates with them, and explains to them their policy. The way that Brooke handles people makes our job easier. And I don't want to have to answer insurance questions because that's not my job. That's not my area of expertise. And I don't want to wrongly advise somebody about a deductible or what's covered or what's not covered. And I know that Brooke is so responsive. One of the things that I find the most impressive about Brooke is I had a situation with my dog. My dog got hit by a car. We were, at lots of vet appointments and things like that. And I had pet insurance through Brooke. And everybody that I came across would be talking to me about the amount of medical bills that our dog had had. And for the emergency treatment and all the recovery care and physical therapy and the whole 9 yards, it's been almost $12,000 for our dog. And we carry pet insurance. And so really it's been less than 2,000, I think, for everything that we've needed to do for him. Here's another plug for pet insurance. Anyways, but I would run into all these people at vet appointments and talk to them about the pet insurance that I had. And I asked Brooke, I said, do you want me to give them your office number? And she said, no, give them my personal number. I want to be able to talk to them. And that to me is the biggest difference of what sets Brooke apart from other insurance agents. I had an insurance agent that I think I calculated it was some astronomical amount of money that I paid auto and home insurance to for like 10 or 12 years. And do you know how many times I talked to that person? Probably two or three times in all the years I dealt with him. And I've had claims, I've had accidents, we've had all sorts of things. And I never spoke to him. I never knew anything about him. He just made it very apparent that, like Brooke said, was just there to do his job and take our money and kind of move on. Whereas I have really found that Brooke is very driven to set herself apart. And that's been one of the biggest things that I think has impacted my business. And I would encourage you guys to reach out to Brooke and see if, set up a coffee time, see if you can create that similar rapport with her, because I will tell you, the way she impacts your business is phenomenal. And I think Diamond can speak to that. I know that her relationship with Brooke has been very similar of advocating and really pushing for items for her clients in the past. So all of that to say, Brooke is the best, and we all love and support Brooke and think that she's amazing. So if there are no other questions, Brooke, I'm going to ask you to share with us your contact information, how people can get a hold of you, and where you're located. And if they have any questions, how can they go about getting in touch with you?
Sure. Thank you for the very sweet words, though, first. Um, so the best way to get in touch with me is my personal cell phone. It is in my hand 24/7. So that number is 719-480-9308. And you can send me a text, you can give me a call, whatever works best for you. Um, that is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. We are in Longmont, about half a mile south of the North Side Walmart off of 66, in a professional building behind Eagle Vision. So if anybody knows Longmont, most of them know where Eagle Vision is. That is how to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for all of your time today. And if anybody has any questions or needs help getting in touch with Brooke, please feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you with her. And I hope that everybody has a great day. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.